And so we've seen two American boxers move on to the second round of this Olympic competition. You say, where's the gymnastics? It's coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll be going live for that competition. You know, the Soviet press has never been particularly warm, you might say, in its reports of what's happening in the United States. But since the Russians announced on May 8th that they would not be coming to these Los Angeles Olympics, the Soviet coverage of American news has reached a level of sound and fury uncommon even for TASS and Pravda. Two recent tragedies in Southern California, of which you're very well aware, the death of 21 people in that senseless shooting in San Isidro, and the death of one person and the maiming of dozens more by that driver out in Westwood on Friday, well, they've been seen in the Soviet press as confirming the official Russian view that this is too violent a stage for the Olympic Games. From Moscow, ABC's Walt Rogers has more on how the Olympics are being reported in the USSR.
This Soviet sportscaster denouncing the Los Angeles Olympics as a political show and Hollywood at its worst was as close as most Russians have come to seeing the LA Games. Soviet television has been substituting sports programming from within the Eastern Bloc countries and blacking out any coverage of the Olympics. Still, many Soviets we talked to felt cheated.
I think that many of our people would like to see the competition.
I'd like to see more views from more people, from more different people, so that we're shown everything and we can decide what's wrong and what's right.
The Soviet government decided it would be wrong to send a team to Los Angeles because they felt Russian athletes would be threatened. As an attempt to reinforce that decision, Soviet television has shown documentaries of anti-Soviet demonstrators in California, as well as pictures that portray Los Angeles as a city terrorized by crime.
According to what they say, well, it is frightful, according to what they say.
Do you believe it?
I don't know.
It wasn't until mid-afternoon today that the Soviet news agency TASS began carrying any Olympic results from Los Angeles, and then they gave all the prominence to the medals won by the Chinese. Despite the average Russian's curiosity about what's happening in the Summer Olympics, nearly everyone we talked to supported the Kremlin boycott of the LA Games.
Yes, I'm very sorry about it, but we had to do it because the American states threatened us, and it's good that we didn't come, just to be on the safe side.
Still, there are reports filtering out to Western newsmen here that some Soviet athletes would have preferred to take the risk, and they feel cheated at having been denied a chance to compete in Los Angeles.
Well, the facts at the moment are that crime is actually down in Los Angeles, we're told by the police department. So is traffic, believe it or not, rather than up, and so is the smog, as you can almost see at Santa Monica. We're going to be coming right back to this City of the Angels after this ABC News Brief and a word from your local station. Here we go.
The games of the 23rd Olympiad continue.
Pavilion on the campus of UCLA, women's gymnastics team competition. Here come the Romanians. And what a great hand they're getting here from this packed crowd at Pauley Pavilion. The #1 contender for the team championship, the Romanians. And there is the greatest Romanian of them all, Nadia Comaneci. At the end of all the sessions but the last in the compulsories, as we look at Nadia and her new hairdo. There is the competition, the team everyone must beat. The Romanian women, the United States at the present time, they work this afternoon, is leading. And which is quite a surprise, not that they're leading, but the way in which they did it, the United States. And we have to see what the Romanians will do here tonight. Kathy Rigby?
Well, interestingly, I had the time right before we started competition to compare our scores to those of the scores in the World Championships. And it just so happens that if we would have compared our scores, as I said, we got this afternoon, we would have beaten the Russians we would have been under the Russians 0.2 of a point, and we would have beaten the Romanians. So hopefully this will hold true.
Well, we'll see if the scoring is that way, and we'll have a good idea to seeing what the Romanians do tonight and how they're scored here. But the competition right now will be Romania, United States, and the Chinese. It'll be the Chinese, the Romanians, and the Canadians here in this final session for the women's compulsories. And then, of course, on Wednesday, they'll go for their optionals, and they'll add them all up, and we'll find out who wins the gold, the silver, and the bronze here in the team competition in women's gymnastics. Well, has women's gymnastics changed over the years? Well, you bet it has. In the beginning, all the girls wanted to do was have a little fun. It has now refined itself down into a very dramatic, entertaining, and very pleasant occupation. We're at the uneven bars now in this first rotation of the final session, the Romanian team, and first up will be Simona Pauca.
This team has really worked together for a very long time. They help each other. They have a lot of fun in the gym, even though they are so intense. This compulsory can be very tricky. They begin with a very good flare there, cut catch, right to a kip, and she's swinging well so far. This entire Romanian team has depth, and you can see on that handstand, good position in the air, very tough competitors. First off the blocks, right to the handstand. That is what the judges are looking for, and a good pop. Way to begin a routine. Whoa.
What a lovely landing. Simona Pauca.
It's important that that first gymnast up is very secure. She sets the standard. Here's that stomach whip. They want a tight pike there and right into the vertical handstand. And you can see as she does this double leg shoot through, her hips and seat should be way above the bar. They cannot touch or it's a deduction. And this should be in a handstand. Let's take another look at that dismounting slow motion. Her hips should leave the bar right under it, and they should pop way above that high bar. Shoulders and hips should be very high and landing absolutely no steps.
All right, 9.70 for Simona Pauca, the first of the Romanians we have seen, and they're off on a very good start. This is Pauley Pavilion for women's gymnastics in this Olympic game. Sunset over Los Angeles. There seems to be something beautiful and awfully final about a sunset in California. In the east, you know, it's just gone over a mountain or a bay, but here it's gone forever. The glorious Pacific looking up past Malibu. It has just been perfect weather here since we came. A little warm, but perfect. And she'll be up again tomorrow morning, that sun, as the shadows get long here in the city of the Olympics. Beautiful sunset. Pacific Ocean. A western rim of this continent and the city of Los Angeles. That's Moon River, isn't it? Almost. All right, we're back here in Pauley Pavilion. And here the Chinese are on the vault. Number 23 is Wu Jiani.
It's been difficult to assess how well the Chinese gymnasts have been doing over the year. They have improved on strength a great deal. And Wu is a good example of how strength is so important. Whoops, big break there. That's a 5/10 of a point deduction. The vault is difficult. Not only are you going forward very quickly, but you're twisting at the same time. Difficult to land, difficult to know where you are. It's important that the gymnast kick those heels over her head, push from her shoulders, as you'll see right here. Now let's see if she's directly behind that horse. No, she's not. She overspun slightly, and that caused her to land. Let's take another look at a little higher angle. You can see her kick her feet over her head. She had a bend in her legs also. Big deduction there. Just didn't have it together.
But in the vault, we might point out, the women get 2 chances and they take their best.
That's right.
Wu Jiani is waiting on her score for her first one, and then she'll go again. She's from the east central coast of China. That's where she was born. She lives now in Shanghai. Her legs were so tiny and rickety as a little girl, they thought she might have polio, and she ran with sandbags wrapped around them to make them strong. Now here she is in the Olympics.
Very tough competitor. There is a hold-up on the scores. When there is a discrepancy between the 2 middle scores, the head judge will call the judges together and either tell them to higher their scores or lower them depending on what her score is.
8.95 she gets. So she's going to have to do better than that on her second vault.
Absolutely.
Now we're back over on the uneven bars with the Romanians. And Agaki, one of their stars.
Obviously, at this level, she has no weak events. In the 1983 World Championship, she tied for second on this event, which meant her compulsories had to be excellent.
18 years old, weighs all of 88 pounds. Comes from the eastern edge of the Carpathian Mountains in Transylvania, Moldavia. A long way from home.
Good position in the air as she does this cut catch. Nice swing there on the kip catch. Watch this handstand, a critical part. She turned right in the handstand position. That's what the judges want. Good handstand on the low bar. Very smooth so far. Whoa, almost on that. Almost fell over. Good position in the air. She really popped up on that dismount. An aggressive young lady. Look at that extension before she even hits the kip position. Nice glide there. Smoothness and swing. Something the judge looked for. Watch her arms now. They were straight. She turned in the handstand position. Got height before she reached the handstand on the low bar. She should have been a little bit tighter on that shoot through, but no problem. Almost over on that handstand, but not enough to give too big a deduction. And perfect landing. You can see that her shoulders are pushing back a little bit on that handstand. Little arch in the back. She drops below the bar. Her hip should be away from that high bar. Really flies above that bar. One of the best dismounts I've seen in the competition so far.
Avina Agaki, and her score now is being posted. 9.85. And now, the next big star. They say this is the greatest since Nadia to come out of Romania, Ekaterina Szabo.
Ekaterina tied for second on this event in the World Championships. She has flair. She's exciting to watch. Strength like Mary Lou Retton. And moving exceptionally well now. Turned right in the handstand, pirouetted right up there. So far, Jack, no breaks. She's going to be tough to beat on this event if she makes this dismount, and she does.
Oh, beautiful. Ekaterina Szabo. She feels it too, doesn't she?
Everyone on this team has performed well. Look at that pirouette in the handstand, right on top of the bar. She gets right to the handstand and low bar with distance. Look at that pike right over, swing. No bend in the arms on the handstand. Clear hip right here. She flies above the bar, very smooth routine.
Well, her nickname is Kati. She scored 5 perfect 10s at the World Championship. We can report that Wu Jiani of China got 9.40 on her second vault. And 9.90 here for Zabo of Romania.
Oh, well deserved. Tough competitor. Shades of Nadia. You wonder what Nadia must be thinking at this point.
Yes.
The super slow-mo really shows you the extension of every movement. Now it's important on that kip that they don't bounce on that low bar, which she did not. You can see her hand movements, straight body position in the air. Look at this pirouette right on top of the bar, and that's where they want to be. There should be some distance between the hips and the hands before they reach that low bar.
Uneven bars, not.
She has all the fullness, extension, and her hips above the bar there, as you can see. This event takes great strength, and there's her handstand and her dismount. Watch how she flies above.
And watching all the while, Nadia Comaneci. We'll have more of the women's compulsory gymnastics from Paulie later. We're back at Paulie Pavilion for the women's compulsories, and the Romanians, the favorite in this team competition, have just completed their uneven bars, and they have outscored the United States by 0.3 of a point on the uneven bars alone now. The United States' first rotation actually was the vault,
which they did extremely well in.
and now there's a delay by the judges again. We've had this all day long. It's the only traffic jam in the Olympics in Los Angeles yet. Here is Kati Zaldor.
Preparing now for the balance beam because that is their next rotation. I might mention one of the reasons for the judges' delay. This is my own opinion, but I think that it's because there are many gymnasts, many judges from the Eastern European countries that did not come, and so there are some new judges out there and probably a little intimidated by the situation.
Well, it's a very difficult situation, not only for the judges, but for the athletes, these delays. Here is these girls here are finished, these women here finished on the uneven bars, waiting to go to the next apparatus, and here we have 3 more vaults to go. And now we're ready for the second of Maya Hong.
This is actually Zhao Ping from China. Full twist, nice landing. You can see that the Chinese have improved tremendously on their vaults. They're getting the height and the distance, and obviously you can see that she was very controlled on the landing.
Our first vault for Zhao Ping.
Watch how her shoulders push very hard. Her arms push hard. Her shoulders take the shock. Good straight body. They want to be finished with the twist before they reach that imaginary horizontal position. And good landing there. This is where you can see if they're on as far as the direction is concerned. And she's a little off to the side, but the judges won't see that.
9.85 she got with that first ball. Now she can just freewheel it, can't she?
Well, now she can go all out, as you say. Little labored on the run, but it doesn't seem to affect her too much in the vault itself. Another good landing. Let the judges choose the best.
She stuck that one.
What every gymnast dreams of doing in a competition like this. Landing it, having a good takeoff, very straight body position. Timing is so important on this vault. And you can see she's stretched out there. Her feet in front of her hips and shoulders, and a good landing there.
Zhao Ping from Beijing, 16 years of age, weighs all of 90 pounds. It's about perfect for a gymnast.
These gymnasts are so disciplined, the Chinese. They've worked and worked on their strength, improving their strength in their ankles, which at one time were very frail and giving them a hard time, especially on the floor exercise and balance beam. And as we've said, it's very frustrating waiting for your scores.
Well, she knows she has the 9.85 already. And she's hoping this will be a 9.9 or a 9.95. China, Romania, and Canada in this session, the United States having gone earlier. And you might have been with us earlier to see that our girls did get off very well.
One thing I might mention, Jack, is unlike the men who started from a 9.8 and getting 2/10 for extra virtuosity and daringness, the women start from a 10, but the gymnasts will, with the most superior exercise, will get the higher scores. Let's take another look at Zhou's vault here. You can see that her direction is good, and not a better landing to be found. Perfect.
Well, we could have scored it by this time, I think. What do we give her, Kathy?
Well, I would give
Let's get on with
I would
this.
give her the same thing. I would give her a 9.85 if they're
9.85?
comparing it to the first one. Of course, I don't think they want my opinion at this point.
All right, a 9.9 for Zhou Ping. That was worth the wait.
That's right, especially for her. I was a little rough on her.
Now, Chen Yongyan.
Veteran of this Chinese team, many international competitions. She has everything she needs to get a good score here. In practice, she was doing quite well. But that step is going to cost her a couple of tenths of a point. When those heels get over your head a little bit too quickly, you have a tendency to over-rotate. She's a little high on the horse right there. It's hard to see from this angle, but her feet went under her and it caused her to step forward. Just pushing a little bit too early. Here you can see it. You can see that her heels are over her head, almost in the handstand position as she takes off, instead of closer to the beat board. But she has another vault. She can make it up.
22 years old is Chen Yongyan. She was first in the all-around at the Asian Games in 1982, second in the vault. She's quite a veteran, well-seasoned, experienced, and with an awful lot of talent. Chen Yongyan from Guangxi.
She's very tall for a gymnast as well. When you put her next to Agaki and Zabo, she looks like a giant. And of course, they're having another judges conference. Very hard on these gymnasts to wait.
9.85.
The reason she got a 9.85, the same as Zhou Ping, is because she had much more height and distance. Now, if she can land it, she will obviously get a better score than her teammate.
She is ready. Second vault.
She should probably receive the same score. We couldn't see it from that angle as far as how much distance she got, but she stepped the same way, same 2/10 of a point. Let's watch as she punches out of her shoulder. Blocking is important. It's like the pole vaulting, as Gordon said last night. Instead of using a pole, you use those arms to repel you into the air.
Chen Yongyan and the Chinese would have appeared to have gotten off to a very good start on their first
Now we can
apparatus.
See, excuse me, Jack, now we can see the distance. Her legs are apart off the board, as you can see there. The judges probably won't see that. And her arm drops straight to her side, and there's a tenth of a point there.
They probably didn't see it, Kathy. 9.90 for Chen Yongyan. And as we just said, the Chinese women's team off to a fine start. So that is how the women's compulsories are going now in this last session. And we'll be back after this word from your local stations.
The games of the 23rd Olympiad. Brought to you by Kodak Trim Print Instant Cameras and Film, the newest way from Kodak to share the fun of instant photography. By Boeing, getting people together with the new 767 and 757. By Beatrice Foods, many of your favorite products come from us. Beatrice, you've known us all along. And by Compaq, makers of the new Compaq Desk Pro personal computer.
Well, I'm Jim McKay, back again live in Los Angeles. Yet to come more live coverage of those Romanian women gymnasts. We'll also have our first look at a remarkable American women's volleyball team. That also will be live. Lots of things still coming up. People here, however, are still talking about the opening ceremony that took place on Saturday, and specifically about one thing, a card trick performed by more than 90,000 people. Ray Gandolf has a report.
4, 3, 2, 1. Lift up your card.
Wasn't that something? That card stunt, creating the nation's flags, one of the more spectacular moments of the spectacular opening ceremony, involved 90,000 people. Every person in the Coliseum found in his seat a solid color plastic card, instructions in English and French and Spanish and Japanese, told you to hold it on your lap by the handles. When the announcer said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, you held it up and bingo, you were part of the red stripe at the bottom of Ecuador's flag. Working out the flag arrangement was not easy. There was protocol. They had to be the same size, none more prominent than another. There were safety worries and aesthetic ones.
We had to make sure that one flag that was basically solid red did not butt up against another flag that was solid red, because it would have all run together, and that we got a nice visual balance.
And we couldn't use cards. We couldn't use cardboard card because they could have been used like frisbees. And security were worried that if people started throwing these cards around, they could actually cause damage.
Once the flag arrangements were set, photographs were taken of every seat in the Coliseum. Then the color data was fed into a computer that spewed back the right color for the right seat. Then the seats had to be labeled so that the right color card, 8 colors were used, was on the proper seat. Rick Birch got the job because of a card stunt he had organized for the 1982 Commonwealth Games in Brisbane, Australia. Card stunts like this one, and like the ones at the opening ceremony for the 1980 Moscow Olympics, are far more elaborate than the Los Angeles stunt. But they are the work of a comparatively few well-rehearsed card flappers. Birch and Hedema wanted to get everybody into the act and at the same time pay tribute to the attending nations. The audience did not know what the cards would reveal. Very few people did. It was a well-kept secret, and it's not the last one.
I assume that you're planning something for the closing ceremonies as well?
I assume we are, yes, Ray. Yeah.
Give us a clue.
Well, it won't be flags of the world.
Will be a card stunt?
No, it will not be a card stunt.
We will give everybody in the stadium a chance to participate again, though, and we're excited about it.
Kathy Rigby McCoy and Jack Whitaker at Pauley Pavilion for the women gymnastics, the compulsories, and after the first rotation in this final session, the United States leading by 25 hundredths of a point over Romania and China, who are tied for second, Japan and West Germany, fourth and fifth. And we are in the second rotation now, but there are certain things you have to do, obviously, in a compulsory exercise. Let's take a look at what some of them are in the balance beam. Kathy?
The balance beam can be a very tricky event. This is a full turn. Now watch, her legs should be up in the air. This is Kelly Garrison, member of the women's Olympic squad. It should be in the horizontal position before they step, and it's very tricky. A lot of times they have trouble keeping their balance on that particular move. We also have a handstand with a half turn. They must hit the vertical position in the handstand, as you'll see Kelly do. And then they want a horizontal split at the same time they hit that handstand. And that is the perfect way to do it, but very difficult to do when you're in competition and your nerves are on end. This is what all the practice pays off.
All right, the Romanians are on the balance beam now. It is one of the more difficult of the apparatus faced by the women. And this is Mihaela Stanulet. She is from Sibiu in Romania, 17 years old, 4 feet 10 and 97 pounds, I think, soaking wet.
Exactly. In the European Championships, she placed third on the balance beam, which meant she had to have a very good compulsory. The very first move, this mount, watch where her foot is placed. Bottom one, obviously on the beam. The other should be in the horizontal position. A little bent there, a little lack of form. These Romanians have been extremely controlled on the balance beam so far. Good pop off the arms. Consistent. Little bobble there. She doesn't work well on her toes at the moment. This is where shaky ankles, weak ankles, can play a big part. If you have good basics and good ballet training, it shows on the compulsories. Here's her handstand half turn that we were just talking about. She didn't really bring her feet quite together in the handstand, but she made the split horizontal, and that's what counts there.
That piano music you hear is for the floor exercises which are going on.
And there's her stag leap. And as we said earlier, Jack, sometimes it's a little distracting when you're up there and it comes in all of a sudden. Here's her walkover, very nicely performed. And here's her turn into a scale. This shows the flexibility. The judges want to see that performed high. And here's her dismount. Good position in the air. A little lacking in form. And being high on her toe, both toes.
Mihaela Stanulet on the balance beam. Here's the dismount.
On this dismount, they want to see the legs come into a squat position, a tuck position right here, and then open up almost in the vertical and continue to carry their chest up in the air and land straight up and down. You can see on the feet that these gymnasts almost grasp the beam with their toes wrapped around. Of course, the beam is now padded. At one time, it was not. She's holding on there. And her feet should be turned out a little bit more than they are. They should work high on their toes. You can see her grasping that balance beam for balance there.
9-7-0 is the score for Mihaela Stanulet. Very nicely done indeed. Rather confident, which you have to be on the balance beam. It's only 4 inches wide. Next up here now is Laura Cutina.
In Olympic competition, you truly have to be aggressive. You cannot hold back, especially at this level, and you want to win gold medals. Laura's worked a great deal on ballet. She has good lines and extension.
Very good in compulsories.
Yes.
As most of the Romanians are, though, I think.
Correct. She is, in fact, stronger in compulsories than optionals.
She was second to Mary Lou Retton in the American Cup this year.
Moving well so far. On her full turn, her leg wasn't quite up to the horizontal, but she's moving with a good rhythm. Look at this extension before the handstand half turn. There's her sideward jump. A little low on that, a little hesitant, controlled. And you can see the concentration. The leap should be fully split, and that back leg should be high and bent. That was not a mistake. That's part of the compulsory. Here's her walkover. Leg should be completely split in the air. Look how she holds that leg up. One of the requirements, it should be at least horizontal. Little break there. Small breaks, only worth 1/10 of a point. Here's her cabriole. Nice and high. A little flare there. And a good dismount.
Laura Cutina.
Okay, once again, you want to watch that her knees are carried up into the tuck position. Right there. She's a little opened. And boy, she opens up very early, and you can see that her chest is up in the air and stretched.
Laura now waiting for the score. Lovely smile. She's from Bucharest, but she trains 200 miles away from Bucharest. 9.65. 9.65, and our Ann Simon now is with the United States women's coach, Don Peters. And
Jack, I've spoken to several of the gymnasts who seem a little bit concerned about the scoring. Don, is there a reluctance, do you feel, on the part of the judges to give the kind of scores to the United States girls that they might deserve?
Well, I don't think it's anything directed against or towards the United States girls. I think that it was more related to our draw. And there's a problem in judging, that when you're judging all day, session after session, the scores tend to go higher in the later sessions, and unfortunately we drew an early session. The reason for that, I think, is because most judges know that it's a top-ended system that ends at 10. And if you throw out 9 9s and 10s, and if perchance someone should come up later and be better, then you don't have any place to go. So they tend to be very conservative with their scores in the early sessions until they see everyone, and then in the last session they usually let loose a little bit. And it's a definite disadvantage. I was upset that the scores that we got on the balance beam and the floor exercise were, I thought, lower than what they should have been, and there's really nothing we can do about it.
All right, Don Peters, thank you very much. Best of luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Don Peters talking about the scoring here in the women's compulsory, and that's what we're having in Pauley Pavilion with the Romanians on board, and we'll be back with more Olympic action in just a moment. Back at Pauley Pavilion for the women's compulsories in gymnastics, you're looking at Lavinia Agaki of Romania on the balance beam.
And so far, Jack, she has been moving very aggressively. All of her elements have been hit quite well. A little low on that side Cezanne.
She was first on this balance beam in the European Championships in 1983.
She has good flexibility. She attacks every move. Here's her walkover. A move that seems so simple, and yet in the compulsory, she did not hold up her leg on the end of that in the horizontal. She should have. But in Olympic competition, those nerves get to you. But so far, she has done an excellent job. Up on her toe at the end of that scale, there's her cabriole. Could have been a little bit higher. Let's see what the judges think. It was a good routine.
Nadia Comaneci looking on at Lavinia Agaki.
These Romanians show so much more emotion than they did when Nadia was competing, and it's good to see. Let's take a look at that dismount now. She just did the cabriole, which was a little bit low. That front leg should have been up just a little bit more above the horizontal. She opens up early, chest is up, good position on the floor.
And a 9.85 for Lavinia, and the Romanians keep very consistent here with some nice scores. Now we might have Nadia's heir apparent, Ekaterina Szabo.
I love to watch her because of the confidence she uses to attack this event. She doesn't usually hold back or let her nerves control her. I've seen her break before, but not because she hasn't really attacked the apparatus. A lot of pressure on her right at this moment. She rushed that just a little bit. That leg should be extended right after the back handspring. In practice, she does one routine after another, perfecting each movement. So far, no breaks. Jack, the confidence is just so apparent. And the determination. Here's her handstand. Whoa, big break there. She should have hit the horizontal with her feet. A couple of tenths off, at least. As we said, that handstand half turn is very tricky. There's her leap. But the experience is paying off. You don't see the nerves. Whoops. A little off on her technique on that walkover. 2 breaks so far. There's her cabriole and her dismount coming up. 2 slight breaks.
Ekaterina Szabo on the balance beam to conclude that for the Romanians.
It just goes to show you, no matter how much you're on that balance beam, how much you practice, when you're under pressure, anything could happen. Let's take another look at that break. You can see that she hit the vertical position in the handstand, but just was a little bit overturned on that handstand and had to pull it back to the split position.
9.75 for Kati Szabo.
It's good to compare these dismounts. You can see the height difference, and she really opens up and she flies above that balance beam. One of the best dismounts in the competition.
All right, you're watching the Romanian women. The strongest competition at these Olympic Games will be back.
Starting to get dark in Los Angeles now, almost 8 o'clock, as a matter of fact. Yet to come, well, we're going to have more live gymnastics. The Romanians out there performing in the compulsory gymnastics competition. We're also going to be seeing our first look live at the United States women's volleyball team and the women's 200-meter breaststroke in the swimming competition, along with boxing. So, as we say, there's quite a bit more to come. Right now, however, a report on the sport of soccer, which has been drawing well here, but this is something else. Here's Kathleen Sullivan.
Perhaps you've heard that old line, I went to a fight the other night and a hockey game broke out. Well, it happened here last night, only the sport was soccer. After a first-round match between Italy and Egypt that was marred by a number of fights, the International Soccer Federation came down hard today. 3 of Egypt's players were suspended from the international play for up to 3 games for fighting. 1 Italian player was also barred. And the entire Egyptian team was warned against further misconduct after losing to Italy 1-0. The suspensions were the only bleak spot during a big weekend for Olympic soccer play around the country. Crowds filled the stands at first-round matches at several stadiums. At Harvard, 25,000 watched Norway and Chile battle to a scoreless tie. There would have been more fans, but there weren't any more tickets to be sold. At the Naval Academy in Annapolis, a sellout crowd of 29,000 was on hand for the 2-2 tie between France and Qatar. More than 37,000 watched Italy's win over Egypt at the Rose Bowl. And at Stanford, just south of San Francisco, some 78,000 fans roared as the U.S. beat Costa Rica 3-0. And that was just a preliminary game. And since professional soccer arrived in this country in the late 60s, there has never been that big a crowd for a championship match. Skeptics point out there are extenuating circumstances for this outbreak of soccer fever. For fans in Cambridge and Annapolis, after all, the matches were the only Olympic Games in town. As for Stanford, well, California has always been a mecca for soccer, but perhaps Americans are just getting hooked on the world's most popular sport.
And tomorrow night, the United States plays Italy in soccer in the Rose Bowl. As we said, darkness is just about descending. Lots of things coming up, most of them live in our coverage of the Olympic Games of Los Angeles. Right now, we will notify our stations along the way that we are now going to take a 5-minute local news break. We'll resume our coverage of the games of the 23rd Olympiad after a commercial and this news break.
Of the 23rd Olympiad. Brought to you by Minute Maid. We make sure your first taste of the day is the best it can be. And by 7-Eleven, giving great athletes the freedom to pursue their dreams.
Olympic coverage continues with the gymnastics at Pauley Pavilion, but there's much more to come this evening. We'll have live the United States women's volleyball team, one of the great stories of these Los Angeles Olympics, women's swimming, and much more. But right now we're in Pauley Pavilion in the standings after the second rotation in this final session. The United States still leading, but only by a little bit over Romania, who is closing the gap. China in 3rd place, 4th for Canada and West Germany. And what do you think, Kathy?
Well, Romania is very tough on the floor exercise. I think the Americans, as well as the rest of the world of gymnastics, knew that they would start catching up. The Americans were great on the floor exercise, and the Romanians are equally as good. So we will have to just see if there are any breaks, because that's the only way that we may possibly see the Americans able to lead them. They only have vault left.
This is Mahalia Stanula.
And her first tumbling run, round off back handspring layout, executed very well so far. The Romanians are showing much more grace than they have in the past. much more body wave. Softer arms, shoulders down. Here's her second tumbling run. She should have had a little more height on that first handspring into that gainer Tinsica. Here's her handstand quarter turn. She should hold that straddle up before she sits, and she did. And she should be a little higher on her toes on that turn. Gela should have a little better toe point. Good. 3 back handsprings into a back straddle jump. Of course, they want to see height. This is the critical part of the routine, where balance is so important. Lovely exercise.
Mihaela Stanulat from Sibiu, Romania, 17 years old, and watching is the United States women's team. Coach Don Peters there, and all of them watching Mihaela.
With bated breath, and let's take a look at one of the tumbling runs in the compulsory. Here's the round off. You can see a good stretch here. Now watch this lift. It should be over her head, which it is. A little bit arched there. It should be almost a straight body position and pike on the end. And nice and high in that straddle jump.
Waiting for her score in the floor exercise. Mihaela Stanulat. 9-8-0, and the Romanians closing in on the United States. The United States leading by 1/10 of a point, and most likely is going to be in second place. But still not out of it by any means, and the competition in the optionals is going to be rather fierce.
Exactly. We were very strong on the vaulting.
Laura Kutina.
Laura has a lot of elegance. As we said before, compulsory is her strong point.
Floor work is exceptional, they say. There is the gymnast strut.
As you call it, Jack.
Right to the center.
Kathy Johnson strut, actually.
Kathy Johnson strut.
Yes.
Yeah.
The judges are watching every move to make sure it's perfected, especially on compulsories. In the optionals, you can hide a little bit, but not in the compulsories. They see every move perfectly. And that first tumbling run was right where she wanted it. Look at the expression.
It's fun.
It makes the routine a lot more fun for the spectators. There's her aerial walkover. Such precision. Here's that second tumbling run. Let's see if she gets height. Very nice. And on her back handspring, she should fly before she comes down. You can see why this young lady is so good on this event. Every move is precise, except for that right there. I spoke too soon. Little stumble. Not only can you stumble on your feet, but on your hands. Her leg should have been bent just a little bit more than it was on that leap. There's her 3 back handsprings. An elegant gymnast to watch on the floor exercise. Here's that turn. Good horizontal position. All the way around.
Laura Kutina from Bucharest, Romania. One of the rising young stars of the Romanian team, and Olympic coverage will continue in just a moment. Pavilion for the women's compulsories. This is Lavina Agashi. Laura Kutina scored a 9.8 as the Romanians keep very consistent.
Lavinia has lots of pizzazz on this event, and she extends every move. I see a big difference from the time when she was with Nadia and so stifled almost in her expression, and now she's improved it a great deal. And she has the technique. Look how high that aerial was. There's the front tumbling run. Now watch the height right there. Very good. And really high on that back handspring. There's the handstand. This is where some of the it up there, right in the end of that straddle. So far, Jack, she's had a tremendous routine. Watch this jump. Stretch. The full turn coming up. No wobbles there. One of the top routines of the competition.
Back with a pretty smile, Lavinia Agaki from Coyote, Romania. And now let's take a look in super slow motion.
I think these gymnasts really enjoy this first compulsory tumbling run because it gives them the chance to really fly. They don't have to twist. They don't have to do double backs. They can just show off the height that they get. And they really fly in the air, as we've said many times. Look at those shoulders go almost straight up. She has lots of time to watch where she's landing. Bounces up almost as high as her back layout.